I'm Michael, and this is Investor Voice. Imagine being a young guy who's failed at everything, not once, but twice. You're so broke your own family calls you a disgrace, throws you out, and says you're no better than your deadbeat dad. You're 24, alone, broke, and everyone's given up on you. Now picture that same guy, decades later, running the biggest chocolate factory in the world. He builds a whole town for his workers, homes, schools, hospitals. He becomes a billionaire, then gives it all away to orphans. This isn't a fairy tale. This really happened. It's Milton Hershey's story. He didn't just survive failure. He learned from it. And he truly believed everyone deserved a taste of luxury, not just the rich. If there's ever been proof you sometimes have to lose everything to find your purpose, his story is it. I'm Michael, and this is Investor Voice. Let's talk about the farm boy who created Hershey's. Milton Snavely Hershey was born on September 13, 1857, out in Derry Township, Pennsylvania. His parents, Henry and Fanny Hershey, were barely hanging on, and honestly, most of their problems trace back to one thing: Henry's wild business ideas that always crashed and burned. Henry was a dreamer, but not in the helpful way. He chased every get-rich-quick scheme he came across, ditching the family over and over for the next big thing. When Milton was just 2, Henry sold their farm and went chasing oil money in Pennsylvania. Everyone thought oil was the new gold rush, people getting rich overnight. Henry was sure he'd be one of them. He wasn't. He blew through everything they had, digging for oil and coming up empty. The family ended up flat broke. It got even worse. Fanny was pregnant with their second child. Her 2 brothers traveled all the way to see her in Milton. What they found was rough. Fanny looked sick and weak, and Milton, only 4, was starving. The uncles confronted Henry. They told him they'd help, but only if he gave up on the oil dream. Henry finally agreed, and the family moved to Lancaster County, where the uncles set them up on a new farm. Life wasn't easy there, but Milton worked right alongside his mom, raising chickens and selling eggs. Henry kept coming up with new projects, planting trees, building dams, always tinkering, never finishing. Milton watched as his parents' marriage fell apart, especially after Henry took off again, chasing another scheme. Then came the brutal winter of 1867. It was so cold they could barely keep the house warm. Both Milton and his little sister Serena got sick. Their mom tried everything, but Serena just got worse, burning up with fever. That's when Fanny realized it wasn't just a cold. It was scarlet fever, deadly back then. Serena was only 4 when she died. Losing his sister hit Milton hard. He was just 10, but he made himself a promise. He'd do whatever it took to give his mom a better life. He wasn't going to stay poor. Not long after, he dropped out of school and started working. At 14, Milton landed his first job as an apprentice with Sam Ernst, a printer who ran a German-English newspaper. He hated it. The work was boring, and Ernst had a nasty temper, always yelling, and thanks to his dad, Milton was stuck in a 5-year contract. After a few months, Milton was done. He pulled a stunt, tossed his hat into one of the machines and broke it. Ernst lost his mind and fired him on the spot. Surprisingly, Milton's mom backed him up. She knew the printing gig was Henry's idea and just wasn't right for Milton. So she and her sister, Aunt Mattie, helped Milton find something better. This time he got a job at the Lancaster Caramel Company, a candy shop owned by Joseph Royer. That's where Milton first got a real taste of the candy world. Back then, making candy was all about tradition and experimentation, with recipes passed down by memory. Most weren't even written down, so the owner didn't trust Milton with the candy recipes yet. Instead, he had Milton wash dishes, take orders, and deliver treats around town. But Milton's mom wasn't having it. She knew if Milton was going to make something of himself, he needed to learn the real trade, the candy business. She pushed the owner to take Milton off his usual chores and teach him how to make candy. She even offered to pay for Milton's lessons herself. In the end, the owner agreed. Milton was thrilled. Right away, he fell for the candy business, mixing ingredients, dreaming up new sweets. It all just seemed to come naturally to him. He figured out where to buy the best supplies and how to set prices that made sense. Soon he knew his way around every kind of treat, caramels, fudge, peppermints, you name it. His dad didn't see it the same way. Over and over he told Milton that making candy was women's work, but Milton just tuned him out. While his father chased riches in Chicago and Colorado, Milton stuck around and spent 4 years working for Mr. Royer. He learned everything: how to run a shop, make candy, handle customers, the whole deal. Once Milton felt sure of himself, he and his mother agreed it was time to open his own place. Only problem? He didn't have enough cash saved up. That's when his aunts and uncles stepped in. They pitched in $100, enough to get a small shop off the ground. With their help, Milton Hershey opened his first store at just 19. But nobody ever said it would be easy. The year was 1876, and America was gearing up for its first World's Fair in Philadelphia, just 70 miles from where Milton lived. 37 countries, millions of visitors. Milton saw a massive chance. He set up his confectionery shop on Spring Garden Street in Philadelphia. He sold everything: candies, ice cream, fruit, nuts. Sure, he had competition, but Milton found ways to stand out. One clever trick: he installed an air shaft so the smell of his candy drifted up from the basement kitchen to the street. The sweet scent pulled people right in. For a while, business was great. Milton even needed a bigger shop. But things didn't stay rosy. The World's Fair ended, and then a long, hard depression hit. Candy sales tanked. To keep his head above water, Milton started selling his sweets wholesale to other shops. But then sugar prices shot up and profits vanished. He had to borrow more money from his uncles just to keep going. Copycats are everywhere. You put something cool up on Etsy, and somebody's bound to copy it. You'll lose a few sales. That's just how it goes. But how people see your product, that's a whole different game. Folks pause at $20 for an ebook, but they'll drop $50 on a hardcover without blinking. Pricing is weird like that. Still, when it comes to margins, digital wins every time. Physical stuff, you've got to pay for materials, shipping, storage, the whole deal. Digital, make it once, and every sale after that is almost pure profit. No packing boxes, no late night runs to the post office. You can literally make money while you sleep. So don't overthink it. Just make one thing. Maybe it's a budget template, a digital planner, an ebook, or some social media templates. Solve a real problem. Take decent photos. Write a clear description. List it on Etsy. There are already people looking to buy. The biggest thing holding people back isn't money. It's that little voice saying, "This isn't for me." Ignore it. Start with what you've got, even if that's just $20. Pick a direction. Take the first step. Glad you're here. If you know someone who needs a nudge, send this their way. Subscribe to Investor Voice and hit the bell. Let's make something that matters. Aunt Mattie, who'd first turned him down, changed her mind after seeing him hustle. She lent him another $700 for equipment, this time with a strict 90-day deadline to pay it back. Even so, things moved slowly. The business wasn't growing fast enough, and that loan deadline loomed. Hershey started to doubt himself. He wondered what to try next. Then a break, out of nowhere. A British importer tasted his caramels and was blown away. When he heard the candies could last a month without going stale, he placed a huge order. He promised to pay up if the caramels made it across the ocean in good shape. There was just one problem. Hershey didn't have the cash to make or ship the caramels, so he headed to the bank. Even though he still owed Aunt Mattie $700, he asked for another $1,000 loan. At first, the bank officer said no, but then he took a walk with Hershey to see the little operation for himself, and he was amazed. Hershey was making incredible caramels with almost nothing. The bank wouldn't take the risk, but the officer decided to back him personally, signing the loan himself. Hershey wasted no time. He hired a crew, filled the order, and shipped the caramels to London the next week. Then came the waiting. Days went by. No word. Hershey grew more anxious by the day. He knew if this deal fell through, he'd lose everything. Again. Just days before the loan deadline, Hershey opened a letter and found a check for 500 British pounds inside. In today's money, that's about 65 grand. Milton just about lost it. He could finally pay off everything he owed. The weight was gone. After that, his special caramels, he called them Hershey's Crystal A, started flying off the shelves. At first, Europe was his main market, but sales in the U.S. picked up too. By 1894, Milton's business had exploded. He had several factories, thousands of workers, and was bringing in more than $1 million a year. In Lancaster, people saw him as one of the richest and most respected men around. With a reliable team running the day-to-day, Milton found himself in his 30s with extra time and a restless streak. He decided to visit the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago just to see what was new. He had no idea that this trip would completely flip his life upside down. At the expo, Hershey came across a German company, J.M. Lehman, demonstrating chocolate rolling machines. Back then, chocolate was a luxury, something only the wealthy could splurge on. But Lehman's machines showed that chocolate didn't have to be rare or expensive. It could be made quickly, in huge amounts, and sold cheap. Milton saw his chance and snapped up Lehman's entire setup right there. Lehman was more than happy to sell. Back in Lancaster, Hershey wasted no time. He started tinkering with chocolate, sweet chocolate, baking chocolate, cocoa, you name it. Soon, the Hershey Chocolate Company was born as part of his caramel business. Just like he'd done with his caramels, Milton used fresh milk in his chocolate. People couldn't get enough. Over the next few years, he kept adding new sweets until his catalog was packed with more than 100 different treats. But Milton noticed something big. Chocolate was taking off in Europe, and it was starting to cut into his caramel sales. He trusted his gut. Caramel's glory days were behind it. Chocolate was the future. So he took a huge risk. He decided to sell the caramel business and go all in on chocolate. In 1900, Milton sold the Lancaster Caramel Company to a competitor for $1 million. Right after, he ordered up a massive modern factory for his new chocolate venture. As the factory started going up, Milton sent some of his best people to work for rival companies. He wanted them to learn how to mass produce milk chocolate. Most had to head overseas since no one in America had cracked the code. Only the Swiss seemed to know the secret, and they weren't sharing. Most came back empty-handed. Meanwhile, Milton had new headaches. Lancaster was getting more corrupt by the day. So Milton made a tough call. He left the town where he'd built his empire. He bought more than 1,200 acres of empty farmland in Derry Church, the place where he'd been born. And then he started building a brand new town from scratch for his workers and himself. But by the end of 1903, with the giant factory almost ready, Milton and his team still hadn't figured out how to mass produce milk chocolate. Every attempt had ended in failure. Turns out, the answer was closer than he thought. Back in Lancaster, Milton had hired Johnny Schmalbach, a former caramel worker. On his very first try at the new factory, Schmalbach found a way to heat and condense the milk without burning it. The result? A smooth, sweet milk chocolate with just a hint of pleasant tang. Switching from powdered milk to condensed milk, that was a game changer. Suddenly, chocolate could sit on shelves for months without going bad. Mass production became possible and prices dropped. Johnny had no idea, but he'd stumbled on the secret that would shape everything for Hershey chocolate. Milton Hershey had been selling his bars since 1900, but now he could finally churn them out on a massive scale and sell them cheap. 5 cents a bar, that's what he decided. Suddenly, everyone could afford chocolate, and soon, Hershey bars showed up in stores everywhere. By 1906, Hershey chocolate was raking in over $1 million a year, and he didn't stop there. In the next 2 years, he launched 2 classics, Hershey's Kisses and the chocolate bar with almonds. Those, along with the original bar, sent the company soaring. Milton made millions. His factory exploded in size, becoming the biggest chocolate factory in the world. But it wasn't just the company growing. The whole town of Hershey, Pennsylvania started booming. People moved in, and pretty soon the place had everything: electricity, modern homes, schools, hospitals, churches, even an amusement park, a zoo, and an open-air theater. Milton and his wife Kitty couldn't have kids, so in 1909 they started the Hershey Industrial School for orphan boys, ages 4 to 18. Milton later handed over most of his assets and control of the company to the school, now called the Milton Hershey School. Today, the school owns over 40% of Hershey's stock, making it one of the richest private schools in the country. But while the company was thriving, Kitty's health got worse. Milton had already lost his father and his Aunt Mattie just as his chocolate dream was taking off, so he clung even tighter to his mother and wife. All the money in the world, all the best doctors, and still he couldn't save Kitty. She died of pneumonia in 1915. After Kitty passed, Milton couldn't stand being at home. He buried himself in work. Eventually, he decided to get away and visit Cuba. The place hooked him instantly, the people, the atmosphere. Then he noticed the rich sugar lands. That's when his next big idea hit. He'd build a sugar mill in Cuba, and with it, a whole new town, just like he'd done back home. He didn't hold back. Milton built the most advanced sugar mill around, plus houses, schools, and clinics for his workers. Now, not only could he bring in fresh milk from Dairy Church, but he could also import his own sugar, keeping costs down. Then came World War I in 1914, and sugar supplies dried up. Prices shot through the roof, and other candy companies struggled to survive. Hershey got through it by relying on his own resources. He even signed a deal with the U.S. Army to supply chocolate to soldiers, spreading the Hershey name far and wide. By the end of the war, Hershey's annual sales topped $20 million. But hard times weren't done with Milton. In 1920, his mother Fanny died. It hit him hard. At the same time, competitors started pouring money into advertising, grabbing more of the market. Milton stuck to his guns. He focused on making a handful of great products. It worked. By 1929, Hershey's sales soared to $41 million. Hershey ran the company right up until 1944, finally stepping down as CEO at 87. Just a year later, he passed away from pneumonia in the town he loved, Hershey, Pennsylvania. After he was gone, the Hershey Company didn't slow down. It kept growing, and today it's still one of the biggest chocolate makers on the planet. The company's worth over $44 billion now. But honestly, Milton Hershey's real legacy isn't just about chocolate or money. It's about the town he poured his heart into, the school he founded, the thousands of orphan kids who got a real shot at life because he cared enough to help. Here's a guy who everyone thought would fail. He went bankrupt twice, but he kept going. He just refused to quit. Milton Hershey showed us that success doesn't mean you never fall. It means you always get back up, no matter what, and keep chasing your dream. I'm Michael, and you've been watching Investor Voice. If you like this story about perseverance and building wealth, give the video a thumbs up. It helps more than you realize. And don't forget to subscribe to Investor Voice. Hit the notification bell so you never miss out. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that failure isn't the end. It's just part of the story. Milton Hershey's life proves that the sweetest wins usually come after the toughest fights. You're going to hit setbacks. That's life. The real question is, will you keep moving forward when everything feels impossible? Until next time, stay curious, keep learning from the past, and make smart investment choices. See you in the next episode.